in Washington. Well, President Obama is on a major media blitz. He set a record today doing 5 Sunday show interviews pushing his healthcare reform plans. But is the president risking overexposure? Here to answer that question, Dr. Robert Lichter, professor at George Mason University and director of the Center for Media and Public Affairs. Dr. Lichter, we thank you for joining us today. Your take on whether or not he's overexposed at this point?
Well, as you know, Shannon, I have researchers at George Mason and Chapman Universities actually tracking the coverage. And at this point, he's actually getting about 20% more coverage than George W. Bush did and 30% more than Bill Clinton did at a similar point in their administrations already. But the question is not how much coverage, but how good is the coverage. It's not just the quantity, but the quality that matters. And I think first, Obama has an advantage of having a cool, somewhat withdrawn personality that plays better than a more heated, in-your-face personality like a Bill Clinton or a Lyndon Johnson. Secondly, the quality of his coverage, the tone of his coverage in the news has been also more favorable than that of his predecessors. And when we take a close look at the coverage he's been getting, his coverage is better than the coverage that the issues of his administration gets. So he's the best spokesman now for the administration. He gets better coverage than his policies do. So it's a natural for him to go out and try to sell those policies better.
But is there some kind of disconnect going on? Because as you said, the numbers prove that people like him a lot more than they do his policies. Is his personality and his delivery strong enough to overcome their objections to these unpopular ideas?
Well, I think the big question is that on the one hand, he does have a cool personality that sits well with people. He doesn't overwhelm you. On the other hand, he's getting a reputation as someone who is not as decisive as he might be, not as involved as he might be. So these two elements of the same personality are playing against each other. And it's going to be up to him to try to show that he's cool, reserved, but in control, knows what he's doing, and can be trusted.
Let me ask you, has there been a shift in the way the media covers him, the tone? Is there a honeymoon waning just yet? What have you seen?
That's precisely what happened. His first 100 days in office, major media coverage was about 2-to-1 positive toward him. The second 100 days, it was about 3-to-2 negative. So there is a shift. That's inevitable. We found that with other presidents. The more you get into the hurly-burly of policy making and appointments and so forth, the more criticism you take. But even with more negative coverage, which he definitely is getting, and far more negative than he got as a candidate, by the way, he's still doing better than other presidents who, like George W. Bush early in his administration, were able to sell their policies without getting highly favorable coverage. You know, nobody gets really good coverage for very long in the media these days. So by comparison, he's doing pretty well.
All right, Dr. Robert Lichter, thank you very much for the interesting research in those numbers.